Hi, this is Ashley Hawkins, and I am the manga librarian, and today I'm talking about Manhwa. So, okay, this is actually coming out of some conversations I've had recently, and also my recent just falling really deep into a manhwa or webtoon hole. So, manhwa is not manga, although there is a relationship there. So, we're going to talk a little bit about manhwa, why you should be aware of it, and its kind of relationship to manga a little bit, and also kind of what makes it a little tricky for libraries. And just because it's tricky for libraries doesn't mean you shouldn't know about it. I think we might see, because manhwa are webtoons, because that's really where the boom is happening, is the web-based versions of manhwa are on such a rise that I think eventually, I think we're going to start seeing physical copies of things, and the signs are definitely there. And we'll talk a little bit about applications and things like that. So I am going to say I am fairly newer to manhwa than I am to manga. So there are probably people who are bigger experts than me, and I am going to put some resources in the description box because I had to do some research, and a lot of this is going to be based on just what I know right now. There's a good chance I'm going to have to update this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it, and so here we are. So manhwa, when we talk about manhwa or webtoons, webtoons is a bigger category because webtoons actually can encompass digital comics from various places. But when I'm talking specifically about manhwa, I am talking about digital comics produced in South Korea. So, you have probably noticed, as I have noticed, that Korean pop culture is on a huge boom, which has been really interesting. My husband is half Korean, so for us that's been really great because there are things that are accessible to us that weren't as accessible in years past, and that's really cool. And it's been interesting to watch this boom sort of happen, and it is in some ways adjacent to, but also in some ways separate from, the manga and anime and otaku subculture, for a couple of different reasons. One that I won't really get too much into is that there are political tensions between Japan and South Korea. And I'm being very specific to say South Korea because North Korea does have manhwa, but it's a little bit hard to get a hold of, and it doesn't have quite the boom happening for various reasons. Once again, political. And so I'm focusing solely on South Korea. So that is part of why there can be kind of a separation. Also, otaku culture tends to be very masculine, male-driven, and Korean, or at least Korean pop culture interest in the West is very female, feminine, LGBTQ plus driven, which is incredibly interesting. And one of the reasons why I've really been drawn to this media as it has become more accessible. Because quite honestly, it wasn't that accessible until very, very recently, which is why I haven't been able to read very much. Basically, the only manhwa that I had read up until Webtoon, which is the Line app that really kind of kicked off this whole fervor and fever, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. That may even be, I don't know. Yeah, about that long ago. I think is when they started. Before then, the only manhwa I had read in full was Gung, which I read because it luckily got a translation and was brought over. And I had watched the K-drama. Most of my Korean consumption of media is actually K-dramas and music. So this is a relatively fresh space, which also makes it a very young space. Manhwa is very popular with our teens, like more popular than you probably know. But you might be starting to pick up on it. I think the pandemic has also helped really boost it because we are really consuming digital content at a higher rate, and Webtoon at least is free. There are ways to like pay for like advanced reading of if you want to read, basically if you want to read certain chapters before other people, you can give yourself a boost, but you can also wait. I wait because I am trying to like be in control of myself, because here's the thing, these are not available through libraries. They are only available through these digital applications. So you go on to Webtoon, which is the main app for this, although there are other apps. I do pay for one. I had to really restrain myself from participating in other applications, which unfortunately are pretty predatory in their pricing, and that predatory nature has made me really say I cannot do this. I can't afford it, quite honestly, because it will drain you of your money. There is like a real draw, because you want to just keep reading and you know the content's there, but they want you to pay like a couple dollars for a chapter, and a chapter is going to take you 5 minutes to read, if that. For me, it's probably about 2 minutes. And the thing is, manhwa is written really addictively and has constant cliffhangers, and the art is really good, and you just want to keep consuming it, and they know it. They know you want to just keep going. But the main one that I stick to is Webtoon. I also subscribe to Manta, which is an application where you pay a flat fee of $2.99 a month, which is a dollar more than I pay for Shonen Jump. So for me, that's actually worth it, because I'm trying to stick to legitimately translated versions of these works. You can find them illegally downloaded and translated across the web, but I really try to stay here. And there's all sorts of really good stuff. And like I said, it's majority, these are mostly written by women. and they are mostly written for women or LGBTQ plus people. On Webtoon, there are creators who are not Korean. Their top title is a title called Lore Olympus, which actually is getting a print version, which is why I said there's a possibility of there being a bridge happening very soon. So it's just that popular. Everybody's reading Lore Olympus. I really highly recommend it. It's really good. I'm addicted to it. But it's not written by a Korean, or drawn by a Korean. It's but the majority of the titles on Webtoon are Korean translated, but not all of them. And they have really creative premises. Some of them are more simplistic. Some of them are very elevated. I've been reading, I've been reading Unholy Blood, which is really well done, and the art style is like fantastic. Jesus. Let me go to chapter 1. Like, just gorgeously illustrated. The format is a long read as opposed to flipping between pages, to make it easier to read on your phone, on your mobile device. It's really designed for smartphones. Alternations between bright white space and illustrations. Text can actually be fairly dense in these. There's a lot of reading that you do. But yeah, I love the illustrations in Unholy Blood. It's crazy to me that this is just available for free, which is also like why they don't really need to put these things into print. Also, this is hard to put into print because the format is like all about this scrolling format, and it's different. But there's really great titles, and it's something that our teens are reading right now. Let me think. Like I said, there are some things that I think are going to move over into print. The more popular it is, the more likely it is that they will print it, and then we will be able to, as libraries, buy print volumes. I don't know that they'll ever sell ebook versions. I don't know that they have a reason to sell an ebook version of it, because it's available for free on their app. The other applications that are available that distribute these, maybe they will. I don't know how they're doing business-wise. On one hand, like I said, they have a certain way of manipulating you into spending money. And that may work for them for a while, but I have a feeling a lot of people drop off after, making more payments than they want to make. Particularly right now as we're in economic downturn. So I wonder if they might either go to a more Webtoon-based pricing model where instead of paying for chapters and you only get to read the first. Usually you can only read the first 5 chapters for free, and then you have to pay for all additional chapters. Or or maybe going to the Manta model. There's other payment models that they might go to, but I'm curious to see how the landscape kind of shifts. And if we'll see any relationship develop between these webtoon publishers and libraries, it's hard to say right now. It's all so new. But I think the only way we're really going to have them is through print editions, at least in the immediate future. I just don't see them developing a relationship with Overdrive. I don't know that it benefits them. It just is what it is. And I don't know that I would particularly want to pay for something that my my patrons are reading for free, particularly things like a webtoon. I mean, if it's on Webtoon, then I wouldn't buy it digitally. I wouldn't buy Lore Olympus digitally. I would buy it in print to make it accessible to somebody who didn't have digital access. But I just can't see myself wanting it in digital format. I would just, if I recommend it, I'm going to say download Webtoon. Read it for free. But like I said, the other applications that are available are TappyToon, Tapas, I want to say Legion Comics. I believe Legion is another one. Tapas and TappyToon are called what they're called because there is also kind of a... Tapas in particular has a thing where you could tap on ads and gain points to read more stories. I've played with that in the past, but I'm not particularly comfortable with clicking on ads constantly and giving away. A lot of them are like surveys and things that ask you to give away a lot of information. I'm really leery of that as an information professional. And a lot of it is like you have to buy something to really get the big points. Which is kind of sad because Tapas actually has titles that I really want to read. So does TappyToon. TappyToon has some really interesting titles that I've read. What I do is I read the first 5 chapters and I go, oh, I want to read more, and then I kind of stop myself. One other thing to kind of point out about a lot of these manhwa, these webtoons, is that they are often based on web novels. Web novels are wildly popular, particularly in Korea. And I would dare say they are more popular. It's kind of hard to say. Are they more popular in Korea, Japan, or China? I mean, China's so big, but I don't know. Korea is really wild about web novels. And they produce many, and a lot of them get made into dramas, but they also get made into these manhwa. And some common storylines are often the most popular is somebody gets hit by a truck. They live in normal, usually it's Seoul. They live in Seoul, they're walking across the street, they get hit by a truck, they die. And then they're reincarnated in their next life as the villainess of a book they read or a video game they played, and they now know that they are the villainess, and they don't want to meet the horrible end that the villainess meets at the end of the story. And they reorganize their life to be a better person. And typically multiple people fall in love with them, or, they their particular moves really drastically change the landscape of things. This genre is called Isakai. It's really popular in Japan as well. I'm gonna make a whole video on Isakai in manga, but it's also a big thing in Manhwa, and it's something I have a weakness for. I don't know. I just really like reading them. Usually the illustrations are really gorgeous. The way dresses are drawn are really nice, and they're just a lot of fun. Usually the characters being reincarnated is only just the impetus for the character to undergo massive changes, because they know things in advance, but sometimes they seem to just totally forget that they're reincarnated within 5 chapters, and then it just goes from there. It's, like I said, it's fun to read. There's also a lot of boys love manhwa, boys arabu. So a lot of yaoi. Ranging in intensity. By the way, some of these can be very spicy, very sexy, and some of them can be really chaste. Some of them it takes like 50 chapters for anybody to kiss. A lot of slow burn romance. They're mostly romance. I will say that romance is kind of the name of the game in terms of popular manhwa. Not all of them. There are some comedy series, some daily panel comics, things like that. But primarily, it's romance. It's all about romance. And it's just, I don't know. I guess it's this current world we live in. It's just nice to read something that's very escapist and very... in some ways it can be pretty predictable, and it's just fun. It's fun to read, and the art styles are usually really good. Sometimes it can be rough. I will say that because they put themselves on pretty punishing publishing schedules. So sometimes you'll get an iffy illustration. I'm kind of picky too. I will say they're mostly digitally drawn, although most manga nowadays is done digitally, for the most part, although some people do still use traditional methods, but I'd say 100% of manhwa that is being published is being done digitally, because it's highly colorized and so forth, which also gives it its own sort of look. Although it is, once again, it's highly influenced by manga. So that's also something to keep in mind. You're going to have, it's good to know about manhwa also, because you're going to have readers that, I think we're going to have more and more readers that are looking for more manhwa-esque stories when they are coming to us looking for manga. So they are going to be looking for more shoujo, more isekai, more boys arabu, more things that actually are female driven. I think this is actually a really good thing for us in terms of being able to push readers to more feminine and LGBTQ plus inclusive manga titles, because I can turn to a reader of manhwa and say, well, if you like this title, then you may also like this manga title. There's quite a few. You might like, if you like reading all these villainess themed manhwa, You absolutely should read My Next Life as a Villainess. 100%. It's one of my favorites. You should definitely read, oh gosh, what's it called? Hold on, I've got to pull it up. I believe it's called The Duke's Daughter. Okay, hold on. I'm pulling it up on Sora from when I read it recently. See all those. Oh no, no, no. Accomplishments of the Duke's Daughter by Rhea, which is where the exact same thing I was talking about happens, where a character realizes that she is the villain of the story because she dies suddenly in the normal world and is transported into being the villainess of an otome game that she was playing. And she undergoes a massive personality shift, and actually it's all about her managing her land and just ignoring her romantic nonsense that would have gotten her into a lot of trouble if she had stuck with it. So those are like recommendations I would absolutely recommend to somebody who is really into manhwa. And I can say, like, yeah, we don't have manhwa really in the library. I don't even know if Gung is still in print. And it's a bit dated at this point, I think. But if you like this, then you might like that. I would like to see, though, a publishing arm grab some of the web novels that are in Korea the same way that light novels have been grabbed from Japan, and start publishing those, start translating and publishing those. I think they would do really, really well over here. I really want to read them, and finding them is next to impossible. Their sheer popularity tells me that they must be really good. The manhwa that I read that is based on them tells me it's really good. So I want them. I want to read things. There are a lot of things I want to read. And so it would be really cool if, like, I know their purview is like Japan, but like if J Novel Club maybe started picking up some of those licenses. It's okay. I really would not mind if you started picking up some Korean licenses, giving some of these web novel authors a little bit of dosh. So that's where I'm going to wrap this up today. That's really what I have to offer. Like I said, I'm going to drop some resources from people who know more about manhwa than I do, who have been reading it a little bit longer, who review it on the regular. I don't really review it, I just read it. I just kind of blast through them really fast, and it's more for my pleasure reading. I think if I added manhwa to my pile of things that I was constantly reviewing and analyzing, I would go crazy, because there's actually just so much of it out there. So that is really all I'm going to say about manhwa for right now. Like I said, unfortunately, we can't really add much of it to the collection, but, you know it exists, know what's going on, know what the trends are, and you can make some informed decisions about recommendations. So I will see you in the next video.